All right, we're live. So welcome back to Dapp University. So the crypto markets have been getting absolutely decimated over the past month or so. And this has got a lot of people looking around wondering like, hey, are there any other big bullish catalysts on the horizon that can help, sort of fuel a fire for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies and watch them trend higher from these kind of lows that we've made recently? So in this live stream, I want to talk about, a catalyst that's creating an entirely new category for crypto that I think can be huge and hasn't really been factored in yet. And we're seeing some big news about that come out today. All right. So before we get into that, if you're new around here, hey, I'm Gregory. And on this channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. So if that's something that you're interested in, then smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm and subscribe to this channel. And if you want to learn how to become a blockchain master step by step, start to finish, then head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp to get started today. Sorry, I had a little hiccup in the video setup there. But awesome. Welcome. We got people in the chat here. So we got Nardia, Taylor, Kryzik, Gabriel, John, C. Smith, Operation. Welcome, David. All right, so let's jump into this. Let's talk about some really major news that's just come up over the past day in crypto here. So we talked about this a little bit on this channel, on these live streams that we do here each and every Monday through Friday, every business day, about 9:30 a.m. Central Time. We're trying to get back to our normal programming here after being off for a week. But yeah, we talked about this a little bit, but it actually just passed. So this is the news about El Salvador actually voting to make Bitcoin official legal tender, okay? So we've seen a lot of other bullish catalysts for cryptocurrencies earlier this year. Talking about, institutions adopting Bitcoin, like seeing Bitcoin sort of pivoting towards this institutional grade asset. Okay, I've seen corporate treasuries buy Bitcoin for their balance sheet, publicly traded companies, seeing Bitcoin as a possible inflation hedge and a store of value for a lot of the loose monetary policy that's manifesting itself in the world right now. And so we're seeing this entire new category come up for Bitcoin as actually official legal tender. And this is something that really hasn't been factored in yet. And we see some pretty big news about how this has actually come to pass within the past 24 hours. So let's take a look here. So El Salvador is to make Bitcoin legal tender. It's a milestone in monetary history. So this came out early this week, but they were talking about, hey, we're just going to put this thing out there, and we got to see if it actually passes before it, actually comes into effect. Now, I'll be 100% transparent with you. I'm not an expert in the, politics of these foreign nations, all this type of stuff. I'm not pretending to be one inside this video. I see a lot of people kind of like having some skepticism about this type of thing. That's something I can't speak to clearly, right? But if we take this at face value and we say this is actually what it appears to be, then this is a huge category shift, okay? Because we talked about other countries also jumping on board with this. It's kind of this situation where, once somebody jumps on this and we see other people reaping the benefit of this as well, you can start to have this snowball effect. And that's what we're going to see if that actually plays out. And if we see this becoming a benefit to some developing countries. So people like Panama, Paraguay, okay. So let's talk about why they would do this in the first place. Because some people think like, hey, it doesn't make sense for Bitcoin to be legal tender because of downside qualities or like less than desirable qualities for Bitcoin as a currency. Of course, the volatility, number one. The transaction fees or transaction time. So like if you're going to pay for something with Bitcoin, the price could change by the time that you're actually making the transaction by the time the merchant receives it. Okay, you could basically not want to hold your cash in cryptocurrency, because the price volatility by the time you go pay for something, like the price could have changed, all that type of stuff. So there are definitely problems with this, and some of these problems can be ameliorated with Lightning Network, all that type of stuff. But what you have to think about here is there are situations where the benefits outweigh the costs, okay? And this won't make sense for a lot of people who don't have these types of problems, but this seems to be cases where the benefits do outweigh the costs. So let's look at why. So let's take a look here on my screen here. Sorry, I just had this report pulled up. I just lost it. Hold on a second. Let's see here. Okay, so here you go. So El Salvador sends 6 billion home remittances every single year. Okay, which is a huge part of this. And sometimes when you're doing this type of thing, basically the transaction cost with Bitcoin and the time that it takes for those transactions to process actually helps. It's better than the current system that they have. We also see that 70% of El Salvadorans lack bank accounts. Okay, so if we talk about cryptocurrency sort of banking the unbanked, that's definitely consistent with that narrative. And these are just a couple examples of why this is the case. Okay, these are situations where the costs or the benefits outweigh the costs, like I was saying a second ago. Places where Bitcoin actually makes more sense than what you currently have, whereas in some places it may not make sense to use it instead of what you currently have. But these are situations where it looks like it's giving them benefits that are outweighing the costs of the downside costs of actually using Bitcoin this way. So this is a whole new category for Bitcoin, and we do see some more like sort of details on exactly what's passed here. So this is also going to be, from what I'm seeing in other places, a something where basically merchants now have to accept Bitcoin. It's this new category where if you're a merchant, you must accept Bitcoin payments. I believe that there's some options for Bitcoin to be converted at the point of sale to fiat currencies. They want to do that. It's not replacing the place of the dollar in this case. It's more existing side by side. So let's see here. So again, this is one of those things where, I don't pretend to be an expert in the politics of these countries, all right? I don't pretend to be an expert in everything for this particular regard, but we do think it's at face value, like I was saying. This is a huge category shift for crypto because of everything I was talking about before. It adds to that list of institutional grade asset, inflation hedge, store of value, and now we have basically legal tender for nations. And this is a step in the direction of a potential scenario where Bitcoin actually becomes a reserve currency for multiple countries or even the world. Now there's a lot of things that have to happen before we even get to that level. But it's interesting to think about, if nothing else. So let's see if we got any good questions in the chat. So what happened to my eye? See, I got a scratch right here. I'm not really exactly sure what happened there, but I got into a fight. Somebody's saying there's some pretty funny jokes in the chat that I don't want to read on camera. Somebody says, what phase of Wyckoff or Wyckoff, however you want to say it, do you think we're currently in? So let's actually take a look at the Bitcoin price. So that being said, so with all this crazy bullish news, we'll have to see what actually happens to the Bitcoin price, either short term or long term. While this can be a bullish catalyst for crypto, we don't know exactly how the market's going to respond in the short term, or if it actually is going to have as big of an impact as we think it will over the long term. This is very early, but like I said, if we take this at face value, it's one of the situations where it could be really good. So let's see here. So the Bitcoin price, what has it done in response to this over the past 24 hours? Yeah, we were on this bullish trend. Okay, looks like we bottomed, local bottom of around 31,500 about. Yeah, I'm not totally convinced yet. I want to see us kind of like break out of this. We still have this looming death cross. I don't know that this type of momentum's enough to break that. I think we could definitely see some more pain. Talk about that in the video. I think it was on Monday, or maybe it was yesterday. I can't remember. But basically, Bitcoin has this death cross pattern where different moving averages start to cross one another. Basically, short term crosses the more long term moving average, depending on how you draw them. That would basically signal a pretty big momentum shift. And it's kind of a lagging indicator. Some people say that once the death cross happens, it's not as big a deal because you've already seen the effect of it before the averages cross one another. But we'll have to wait and see. I think a lot of people are waiting for this, kind of waiting for the market to potentially dump once we hit that. So let's look at what's going on with the Ether price as well. So Ether, back at $2,500. So we talked about Ether still being relatively strong compared to Bitcoin, at least over this time frame. And ETH continues to make higher lows as we're potentially trending up. We're talking about a lot of other bullish catalysts for ETH coming up down the pike for sure. We've got these layer 2 scaling solutions that are coming out in full force. You basically have Arbitrum, which I believe that Uniswap is fully launching on top of Arbitrum. Now, we're still in a sort of a whitelisted phase for this. I believe it's not open to the public just yet. It's not open to the public just yet. So that's huge. And we initially talked about Uniswap launching on Optimism in that fashion, but looks like we saw some motion towards actually launching on top of Arbitrum as well. So that's going to be big. Of course, we see activity exploding on Polygon. Okay, this is also huge. Lots of other layer 2s coming out. We have EIP 1559 coming out. We have the merge happening maybe later this year, more conservatively earlier in 2021. Lots of super, super bullish stuff coming down the pike for ETH. Everything is happening in DeFi, all the activity on top of the Ethereum network. It's absolutely insane. Someone says, is ETH going to place BTC? So we'll see. It very well could. I think it's possible because of everything you can do with Ethereum versus Bitcoin. But there's no guarantee of that. Somebody says, you and your clickbait titles. Well, I think El Salvador accepting Bitcoin's pretty big news for crypto. I'm not sure what category would you put that in? How is that not huge news for crypto? Let's see. Somebody says they gotta use the bathroom, but they're gonna hold because it's good news. Somebody says, how does it affect Ethereum? So I think this is good news. Like, you're talking about the El Salvador thing. I think it's good news for crypto on the whole. I think anything that's really good for Bitcoin kind of accumulates to other cryptocurrencies as well, trickles down. Because a lot of people's exposure to crypto, they start with Bitcoin and they sort of go down the rabbit hole into other cryptos. And when you see what you can do with Ethereum, I think it's good. Somebody says it's old news. It's not really old news because it was just passed. Okay, so when it launched this week, basically they were talking about, well, this thing still has to pass, and it just passed. So that's why it's big news. It's actually official now. It was not official before. So which country is next? That's a good question. So let's see here. Smith says, when Brazil? That's a good question. Somebody says, I was saying before my fight, I must warn you, I'm not a financial advisor, but definitely take you down like a flash crash. That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know how I got this scratch. Somebody was asking me about that. I made a joke and said it was in a fight, but I don't really know how I got there. Maybe I should wear some makeup. Somebody says, why don't I use Remix in my tutorials? So I do use Remix in some tutorials. So basically, Remix is an in-browser IDE for running Solidity smart contracts, and it's a way to get started without having to download everything on your computer to get, all that type of stuff. But I do use Remix. It just depends on the application. Somebody says makeup tutorial. Yeah, I was still starting Instagram. So say any questions. Actually, so let's actually look at some on-chain metrics here. I want to see where Bitcoin lies. We haven't checked this in a while. It hasn't been quite as big of a concern because we have clearly not been in euphoric territory for Bitcoin. So let's take a look here. So this is our Nupal chart. It's our net unrealized profit loss. We're back into the yellow territory for Bitcoin, which basically is the optimism the the continuum of optimism to anxiety. Okay, so we haven't been checking on this as much lately because I mean we very clearly have not been close to euphoria for a long time, about a month. And the euphoria chart is always what I want to look at for kind of determining if the market's like super crazy. Which the fact that we kissed it right here, let's see what this means long term. Of course, these are not perfect indicators. You know what I mean? You have to look at multiple things altogether. But this is the point when we kiss the euphoric line. So if we enter into a more long-term bear, some people might say, "Oh, hey, this was the time." And I guess if you zoom out here, you can see, you can kind of see this pattern of it, hitting 3 times, hitting 2 times, hitting 1 time, and then not even quite hitting it. Maybe that's what ends up happening long term. We'll see. So I'm going to mute this here in the chat. So let's look at, let's also look at some other indicators here. Look at social sentiment. Let's look at the Bitcoin fear and greed index. So we're still firmly in extreme fear. Okay. So I think a lot of this has got to do with just the bearish momentum that's going on right now. Like I said, this looming death cross, I think a lot of people are watching out for. So I don't think we're just going to snap out of this suddenly. I mean, I do think this news about Bitcoin being accepted as legal tender is good. It's awesome. It's definitely bullish momentum, but we're gonna need a lot of bullish momentum to reverse like the trend that's happening here. So yeah, we're still in the extreme fear category for Bitcoin. We actually can look at the Ethereum fear and greed index because that's a new indicator. So this is a guy, they have their own Twitter account too, which I believe the Bitcoin fear and greed index is as well. But 1 minute ago, yeah, we're still in extreme fear for Ether as well. Not as bad as Bitcoin, but it's still not great. So this is social sentiment. So you can track social sentiment, on-chain metrics, technical analysis, all that stuff to get this sort of multifaceted, picture of what's going on with the markets. We did see this thread yesterday that I think is still a good take, which is basically the fact that, crypto is down 50%, roughly speaking. It is, in a way, kind of bullish for people with a longer time horizon or institutions who might be getting into the space who believe in the future of Bitcoin because it presents them with a buying opportunity with upside in price history. You know what I mean? That doesn't necessarily mean they're going to get in now. They might be waiting for more lows to happen. They might want to wait to see more bottom signals or something like that. But if you think about it counterintuitively, like the fact that Bitcoin now has price history around 65K, and it's currently at 30, what was it, 35K, I think is the current price. Let's look at it back a second ago. That does make people somewhat bullish because it has a proven price history of being at that level. It's one of those things where they don't know how long it'll take to get to that level, but if you can make, essentially double your money, there's price history of doubling your money in this case. And that was one of the big reasons that I bought into crypto in a large way, throughout 2018, 2019, and 2020, because it's like, well, we have a proven price history of being at Ether at $1,400. This was the previous, 2017 all-time high. And when you can buy Ether at $150, then that means you can make a 10x if it ever hits all-time high again. So you're gonna have people thinking this way with Bitcoin, thinking, well, hey, Bitcoin's at $34,000. I can roughly make a 2x if we go back to our all-time high. And Bitcoin's an asset that's been around for over a decade. Without technical failure, with pretty big network effects, with being held on publicly traded companies, balance sheets, pretty significant adoption. You're seeing people saying, hey, if you're telling me that I can buy an asset like that can double based on its price history, like that's attractive. So that's a counterintuitive, sort of bullish indicator for people who manage large amounts of money and buy in size. That doesn't mean it's going to happen right now, though. See here. Somebody said if Polygon is good, why did I lose all my money? All right, everybody. I got to go ahead and wrap it up here for today. Ended up a little bit early. But as always, smash that like button down below for the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. That really helps these videos out so the more people can learn about blockchain. If you're as fascinated with this technology as I am, you want to get your hands dirty, how can you get started today? Well, you can go to my YouTube homepage. You can find any of my free courses there. They're like Udemy courses, but they're totally free. And if you like those and you want to take the next step, or hey, maybe you want to take a master shortcut entirely, actually become a blockchain master step-by-step from start to finish over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. All right. You don't have to be an expert to get started today. I thought people with zero coding experience become real-world blockchain developers in a matter of months. So that's all I've got. And until next time, thanks for watching.